Stand in the corner, Alina. Your wretched expression spoils the celebration of your brother's signing. My mother roughly pushed me from the boardroom table before I managed to lower myself down. Just pour the water correctly, she whispered harshly. Serving others is your only real usefulness here. Do not allow your misfortune to curse this family's precious fortune. I did not shout back. I did not protest. I simply moved toward the side service station, lifted the chilled pitcher, and glanced at the watch concealed beneath my narrow sleeve. 4 minutes remained. The unknown investor they secretly feared would walk through those doors in 4 minutes, and they had absolutely no clue she already stood inside this room. From my position in the farthest lonely corner, gripping the condensation slick water pitcher tightly, I possessed a flawless view of the toxic family structure shaping my entire existence. To Arthur, my stern father, children were never human. We functioned as assets. We existed as figures on a balance sheet. My brother Julian remained the prized investment vehicle. He was the volatile, high-risk technology venture my father stubbornly protected regardless of collapsing value. Throughout childhood years, resources streamed one direction. Elite tutors arrived promptly. When Julian repeatedly failed algebra, consequences disappeared. A brand new sedan appeared after he crashed his first car intoxicated. Seed funding materialized for a restaurant dream that collapsed within months because weekends inconvenienced his preferred leisure schedule. My father labeled these temporary bridge arrangements. He described them as strategic investments in potential. He drained our household security into the endless void of Julian's grand ambitions. Fully persuaded someday returns would outweigh costs. And me, I represented the unwanted liability entry. I was the dependable, predictable bond he resented, ever placing faith in. When acceptance letters arrived, he claimed available liquidity simply did not exist. I balanced 3 occupations. I arranged pharmacy shelves from 10 each night until 6 every morning, then headed directly toward advanced statistics lectures. I finished university owing no debt and receiving no assistance whatsoever. When I secured employment within professional risk assessment, Arthur offered no congratulations. He merely questioned why I avoided commission structures like Julian preferred instead to him. Predictable earnings belonged strictly to servants. Real men wager everything. That reckless compulsion delivered us into this sterile conference chamber today. The immediate problem remained painfully uncomplicated and obvious. Julian had discovered another convenient shortcut again. He always located easier paths. He intended to purchase entry into an elite investment partnership circle. The required buy-in totaled $150,000. He certainly lacked funds. He exhausted his previous rescue package months earlier. Yet he persuaded Arthur this opportunity changed everything. This represented the golden ticket promising repayment of every dollar spent and finally justifying Arthur's decades of unquestioning devotion. I observed Arthur straighten his silk tie carefully, his fingers trembling faintly. Fear gripped him tightly, though arrogance disguised it. He glanced toward me, standing near refreshment station, my quiet presence agitating him beyond measure. "You should be documenting this, Alina," he grumbled softly, refusing direct eye contact. "Julian is about to finalize the agreement securing this family's lasting legacy while you count coins and stress over rent." He imagines expansively. "That remains the distinction between you both." He reclined slightly, motioning around the lavish office space he remained unaware I financed entirely myself. "Julian is an asset. You were a 30-year investment mistake of mine. You represent irrecoverable loss, Alina. At minimum, attempt to contribute something worthwhile today. Observe how dominant players consume opportunity." I tightened my grip around the pitcher handle firmly. A sunk cost. That phrase belongs to economics. It describes funds already spent beyond retrieval. In logical decision processes, sunk costs become irrelevant. However, Arthur lacked logic. He functioned like dependency. He invested excessively in Julian, that abandoning now would force admission. His entire financial philosophy, his entire existence failed. Thus, he prepared to sign away remaining security, his fully paid residence merely sustaining illusion. He remained ignorant that I was no longer liability. I was the auditor, and I intended to seal these accounts permanently. Within this family circle, I existed as unseen daughter, ensuring coffee remained hot and glasses filled. Yet here lies hidden truth, guarded 5 years. I do not occupy administrative assistant roles. I do not organize documents for others. Operate as distressed debt investor professionally. When enterprises collapse, hemorrhaging cash while assets deteriorate into toxicity, I intervene. I acquire failing obligations for fractional dollar values. Afterward, I either reconstruct operations or dismantle them piece by piece. To certain observers, predator. To others, rescuer figure. But to Arthur and Philippa, I remained merely Elena, financially struggling daughter. 14 days earlier, my predictive algorithms identified a minor yet aggressive investment entity named Blackwood Partners. Seeking new associates with buy-in, requirement $150,000. It displayed textbook Ponzi architecture, losing liquidity rapidly and craving new capital before regulatory intervention. Julian boasted about Blackwood for several recent months. He claimed executives personally recruited his talents enthusiastically. He insisted they recognized his exceptional brilliance. The reality proved considerably simpler. They recognized exploitable target. They identified desperate, overconfident son possessing father with debt-free property. Consequently, they welcomed him eagerly inside. Upon realizing my brother approached disaster, initial impulse urged warning. I nearly contacted Arthur. I nearly advised retreat, yet memory intervened sharply. I recalled birthday humiliation, seated deliberately with children. I remembered Philippa's contemptuous glance toward shoes. I remembered Julian's laughter when I announced promotion, mocking weather, color, copier access, accompanied advancement. Therefore, I withheld warning deliberately. Instead, I purchased metaphorical buzzsaw anonymously. Through Shell Corporation, I acquired controlling debt stake in Blackwood Partners 48 hours earlier. Ownership extended beyond liabilities. I effectively commanded entire firm. I directed the board, I supervised recruitment decisions, and governed the individual entering that doorway within 3 minutes precisely. Mr. Sterling was not senior auditor. He served as my chief security compliance officer. I delivered explicit instructions beforehand. He would request verifiable liquidity evidence. He would pressure Julian until composure fractured. I studied Julian discreetly, sweat soaked through tailored shirt. He repeatedly inspected leather briefcase, drumming fingers against metal clasp nervously. I understood its contents perfectly. He lacked $150,000. He possessed roughly $400 in checking account, yet assured Arthur funds remained prepared. He informed investors capital stood ready, bridging remaining deficit. He committed astonishingly foolish act. He extracted bank statement PDF, manipulated file digitally, adding 3 additional zeros. He printed document upon premium textured paper, convinced physical presentation deceived multi-million-dollar auditors. He sat gripping briefcase anxiously. Fearful agreement might collapse. Completely oblivious genuine threat was not failed partnership. Threat was sister standing 5 feet distant, awaiting forged evidence, transforming desperation into federal offense. The trap was set. All he had to do was walk into it. The massive glass door pivoted inward slowly, and Mr. Sterling entered. He resembled not accountant. He resembled final judgment. A broad figure wearing charcoal suit exceeding value of my brother's vehicle, carrying leather portfolio casually, with indifference of man accustomed to destroying livelihoods. I recruited Sterling 3 years prior from elite forensic accounting practice. He proved loyal, methodical, intimidating. Today, he performed flawlessly. He strode past me without slightest acknowledgement, treating me as furnishing just like parents. He offered handshake toward Julian. "Mr. Julian," Sterling stated, voice resonant and composed. "I have heard considerable discussion regarding your ambition." Julian rose abruptly, striking knee against polished table. "Mr. Sterling, yes. Tremendous privilege meeting you. My father, Arthur." Arthur radiated pride, vigorously shaking Sterling's firm hand. "We are prepared, proceeding ahead. My son feels tremendous enthusiasm regarding partnership." Sterling seated himself deliberately, unfastening portfolio slowly. Atmosphere thickened noticeably. "Enthusiasm remains pleasant. Solvency proves preferable. We maintain narrow timeframe closing funding round. I trust liquidity documentation discussed accompanies you today." From the corner, my mother snapped her fingers. The sound was crisp, like brittle wood snapping cleanly. Alina Philippa hissed sharply, gesturing toward Sterling's bear coaster impatiently. "Water, immediately. And do attempt avoiding spills this occasion. Honestly, must we instruct you in every trivial detail?" I lifted the pitcher. This marked the instant when former Alina would have felt tears sting behind eyelids. The former Alina would have sensed humiliation searing through chest, but I was not her anymore. I was the hunter within this room, and silence functioned as perfect camouflage. I approached the table. I filled the crystal tumbler with flawless accuracy, wasting not a single droplet. There exists particular strength in invisibility. When others believe you insignificant, they reveal everything openly. They presume ignorance shields them from consequences entirely. As I topped Julian's glass, his whisper reached my ears. I corrected the figures. It appears flawless now. I heard Arthur inhale sharply beside him. "You are positive it remains PDF, Dad?" Julian murmured. "They cannot detect alterations." I positioned the pitcher down and withdrew quietly to my station. They mistook silence for obedience. They never understood it was calculated restraint. Quiet dignity allows you hearing what others shout unknowingly. Julian cleared throat, reclaiming confidence. He pushed a thick, cream-colored envelope across polished mahogany. "Here lies certified bank statements. Mr. Sterling, evidence of $150,000 liquid prepared for transfer." Sterling refrained from touching envelope. He glanced toward me. That served signal. I advanced forward, eyes lowered. Respectfully, assuming anxious assistant persona carefully. "I apologize sincerely. Mr. Sterling," I spoke, letting voice quiver convincingly enough. "I neglected mentioning earlier. The scanner malfunctioned. Network currently undergoes scheduled maintenance work." Julian frowned deeply. "Then accept paper copies instead. Compliance policy mandates digital original for blockchain authentication." I replied smoothly without pause. "Hard copies cannot be processed for initial buy-in. It remains security protocol." I faced Julian, offering courteous apologetic smile. "Sir, might you forward PDF directly through banking application to this address? We could display it instantly." Upon main monitor, I gestured toward large wall screen. Julian stiffened suddenly. His fingers twitched toward laptop bag. I understood precisely what troubled him. He possessed no application displaying $150,000 balance. He owned manipulated files stored locally. Logging real account meant exposure. Sending fabricated document meant safety. At least he believed so. Immediately, Julian asked, voice constricted. Time equals profit, Mr. Julian, Sterling remarked, checking Rolex calmly. Should verification fail within 10 minutes, alternative partner waits downstairs presently. Panic behaves strangely, distorts reasoning rapidly. Julian hovered so near triumph, so desperate impressing our father publicly that logic vanished. He retrieved laptop. He typed rapidly, eyes shifting nervously around conference room. I observed email client open. I watched attachment titled Capital One Statement, October PDF selected. I saw him press send. Seconds later, my phone vibrated softly inside pocket. Ping! I glanced downward discreetly. There existed email, attachment included undeniable evidence. He had not merely lied. By transmitting forged financial record interstate, seeking advantage, he committed federal wire fraud openly, surrounded by witnesses, delivering proof directly into hands of woman he labeled failure. I raised my eyes toward him. He smiled confidently, closing laptop lid, believing victory secured. He remained unaware he finalized confession. Sterling reviewed tablet, acknowledging receipt silently. He neither smiled nor congratulated. He simply inclined head as though forged federal documentation arrived daily. Liquidity stands verified, Sterling announced, shutting folder decisively. However, according to fund bylaws, 24-hour clearing period applies digital transfers. To secure partnership position today before Asian markets open, immediate collateral becomes necessary. He withdrew blue-bound legal document carefully. He slid it toward Arthur deliberately. This deed of trust, Sterling stated, emotionless, establishes short-term lien against primary residence located at 42 Oak Street. It guarantees $150,000 buy-in until wire transfer settles tomorrow. Upon fund arrival, lien releases automatically. Standard practice within high-velocity transactions. Silence descended heavily across room. I noticed father's fingers tremble. This signature signified more than ink. It represented security net. Entirely. That property stood sole asset owned outright. It embodied retirement plans. It embodied legacy aspirations. Arthur paused uncertainly. He studied document, then Julian, and finally, his eyes flickered to me in the corner. I made sure to appear smaller. I made certain to seem like the daughter unfamiliar with finance, the one existing solely to refill glasses. Is this truly required? Arthur asked, his voice losing its thunderous edge. You possess the bank statement already. The board insists on tangible collateral. Mr. Arthur Sterling replied, glancing briefly at his watch. Should you feel uneasy, we may extend opportunity. To another candidate, Julian leaned forward, panic flashing across face. Dad, do not ruin this chance. Lasts 24 hours only. The funds exist. Arthur lingered, pen suspended uncertainly above paper. He sensed irregularity somewhere. Yet Julian understood weakness intimately. Once partnership is secured, Julian murmured softly, the bonus finances Boca Raton condominium. Golf course panorama included. You will command envy at club. Anxiety evaporated quickly. Greed replaced hesitation. Arthur had invested 3 decades wagering on Julian, sacrificing daughter, reserves, principles. Retreating now demanded admitting entire legacy rested upon illusion. His pride forbade such confession. This defines how empires are constructed. Arthur scoffed toward me. We embrace risk. He signed decisively. Sterling stamped firmly. Clack thud echoed. The deed stood officially recorded. The house became collateral. The trap locked securely. Julian smiled smugly. When security improves, at estate, perhaps, employment awaits you, Alina. You excel at lingering silently within corners. Philippa laughed sharply. Acquire finer suit first, perhaps. I placed towel aside, lifted phone calmly, and moved toward table's head position. Actually, I stated evenly. You will not hire anyone. I connected phone to monitor cable. Mr. Sterling? Pausing. Sterling halted immediately. Attentive! Arthur barked angrily. Sit down. I tapped display. Document A, Corporate Registration of Debt Fund. Arthur read slowly. Alina Vance, I control the firm, I declared. Sterling answers to me. Silence thickened. Document B, real-time account, total. $4,126 displayed. Julian paled visibly. Document C, statement provided by you. I highlighted metadata generated within Adobe Acrobat 1 hour prior. Font inconsistencies visible. It constitutes forgery. I faced him directly. You have committed federal wire fraud. Minimum sentence 20 years imprisonment. Arthur released. Pen, it served placeholder, Julian whispered weakly. You intended theft, I responded. Leveraging Dad's residence. I laid 2 contracts before them. Option A, authorities receive call. Julian faces prison. Property becomes seized asset. Arthur trembled violently. Option B, execute deed in lieu foreclosure. Transfer ownership to my corporation. I decline pressing charges. Julian remains free. You cannot, Philippa shrieked hysterically. You have already forfeited house, I snapped. Decide who loses it entirely. Arthur shifted gaze between Julian and myself. Comprehension dawned finally regarding authority. Give me pen, he murmured, signing papers. I slid executed deed into portfolio. Congratulations, Mom. Misfortune now owns your lease. I turned toward Sterling. Wait inside vehicle. Should I remain beyond 5 minutes? Forward everything directly. To District Attorney, he inclined head and departed. I regarded Arthur calmly. You may remain residing. I will manage taxes and upkeep. Hope flickered briefly. However, Julian departs immediately. My condominium faces foreclosure. Julian cried desperately. Not my concern. You represent liability. I stepped into sunlight while parents redirected anger toward cherished son. I didn't look back.